Working for you. A weekly talk radio program which highlights developments of national interest and the activities of your St. Kitts Nevis government. Join host Lesroy Williams as he presents news, views, reports, and interviews about everything regarding the activities of the Team Unity government and the building of our communities and the development of St. Kitts Nevis. Tune in and call in to interact with your government and share your views regarding the upward forward development of your community and our beautiful Twin Island Federation. Working for You is weekly, every Wednesday live from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. on ZIZ Radio, Win FM, and Sugar City FM with rebroadcast on participating stations. Working for You.
Good afternoon and welcome to Working for You. I am Lesroy Williams. We thank you very much for tuning in to today's program, wherever you are. Of course, you know that your company is appreciated from week to week. Without you, we definitely will not have this program. So thank you for tuning in. Today we are going to be discussing a rather interesting topic, but one I think that is very rare. And that is International Men's Day, which was celebrated yesterday, November 19. In about probably over 70 countries, they celebrate International Men's Day. And I have with me the Department of Gender Affairs, Mrs. Celia Christopher, who is the Director in the Department of Gender Affairs. Mrs. Christopher, welcome.
Thank you, good to be here.
And also Gender Field Officer, Mr. Dion Brown, who also works with the Department of Gender Affairs. I think he's the only male that works in that department.
That's true.
So really, you're in a very unique position.
He's the rose among the thorns.
The rose among the thorns. And the President of the National Men's Council, Mr. Melvin Agard. Welcome, Mr. Agard.
Yeah, I give thanks for that.
I must admit, I didn't even know we had a National Men's Council. But it's good to hear, and we hope to hear more about it. All three of you, welcome.
Yeah,
Well, thank you.
International Men's Day is an unsung event. And to underscore that, this morning someone called me and said, they have an International Men's Day? I saw a press release come out speaking about an International Men's Day. I didn't realize they had such in this federation and that it is celebrated. And I had to go on and explain to him that even yesterday there was an International Men's Award.
Yeah.
And the person was extremely surprised. Okay, so International Men's Day champions men's rights around the world. On March 8th every year, the same inquisitive, pointed questions get asked again and again, especially on Twitter, for those of us who use Twitter. Namely, is there an International Men's Day? And when is it? Why March 8th? Oh, because that's when International Women's Day is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And certain men just can't handle the focus not being on them. Well, we are going to talk about a lot of those things in today's program. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of things, can you tell us about the background of International Men's Day? Which one of you would like to tell us about the background?
Like the officer who is responsible.
Okay, so International Men's Day was introduced in 1992 by Thomas Oyster from where he was from. He was from Malta, actually, and he started. And in February 7, 1994, United States started to celebrate International Men's Day. But the first country in the Caribbean to celebrate International Men's Day was Trinidad, and that happened in 1999. And from since then, other countries start taking on observing and celebrating International Men's Day. The reason why they saw that men had some issue that needed to be resolved and to be addressed, like men's health, non-communicable diseases and NCDs, and International Men's Day also is to really recognize the contribution of men and the selfless sacrifice that they would have given to their families and to their communities. Because we hear a lot of negative about men throughout the society, whether it's violence, whether it's them being fatherless, not taking up the responsibility and not being accountable, or whether they be incarcerated. We hear all these negatives, but the persons forget that they are still positive men, still positive male mothers, and still positive examples. So the International Men's Day exists for that reason, to shine a light, to highlight the contribution of men and the good work that they are doing in their families, community, and the society at large.
Right. Now we have all of these celebrations, a lot of them under the umbrella of the United Nations. For example, we have International Women's Day, we have International Men's Day, and all of this I don't think. We also have what we call Father's Day and Mother's Day, and International Day of the Girl, and International Day of the Child, and all of those things. And one can say, well, look, why don't they just lump all of it together and say, well, we're just having International Human Day? But I suppose that life is not like that. Life has its different facets, its various vicissitudes, and people are different and bring all kinds of things to life. Life is about many colors. It's a kaleidoscope of color and personalities and genders and religions and classes and all sorts of things that go together to make up the fabric of life. But International Women's Day was first celebrated by the United Nations in 1975. So it has been celebrated before they came up with this thing about International Men's Day. And the question that that men asking is that why you have an International Women's Day and you don't have an International Men's Day? And especially for women who are speaking about gender equality and all of that sort of a thing. How can you highlight the contributions of women in society and speak about women issues, but however men's issues and so on are shoved under the carpet and never brought to the fore? Their contributions are never recognized internationally and that sort of a thing. So that idea, and still we can see that International Women's Day is given a lot more significance than International Men's Day.
Yes.
Just like how
Mother's Day
is given more significance than Father's Day and all of that sort of a thing. But at the very same time, we still say that we are pushing gender equality.
Yes. Well, listen, over the years, the focus was on women. And there were issues that women have to deal with where men were part of it. And if we are talking about gender equality, then you must bring men into the conversation, and I have always held that view. And there was a small celebration when it comes to men, but it wasn't even visible. And so, even with women too, we used to do it on a small scale. But after you start doing the programs for men on a broad scale, it was only fair that you bring the men along and attribute the same thing to them. So, hence the situation where we now have a big deal about International Men's Day, because men are making their contribution as well, and they are making some outstanding contribution. You can't paint all the men with a broad brush and say all of them bad. You got very good men out there. You have men who are looking after children, men who are really making contribution to their family and to the society at large. And it's only fair that we celebrate them, celebrate the men in our lives.
Yes, and especially too, we can speak about, when we speak about men, we can break that down into different categories. We can speak about black men, We can speak about white men.
Class.
We can speak about wealthy men. We can speak about poor men. We can speak about, Caribbean men.
Yes.
Because the issues of Caribbean men, although there are some issues that are general in nature, the issues of Caribbean men might be somewhat different
Yes.
to the issues of UK white men.
Yeah. American men.
Or American white men, or whatsoever the
Yes.
case might be. So it's a broad umbrella, and it's good to know that it's this Dr. Jerome Tilak Singh from Trinidad and Tobago who really revived the International Men's Day in 1999.
Yes.
You also had Peter Weller from Jamaica too,
Also.
who came on board because there were so many issues with men that Peter and some other guys thought they should be addressed.
Yes.
The focus should not, all of the focus should not be on women. It's time to address some of men's issues. And so they have this body that they formed called the Caribbean Man Association or whatever it is. And they train a number of men throughout the Caribbean. But the thing is, you train these men, there's a big hype, and then everybody get lost in the shuffle. Because we got a problem in the Caribbean where we cannot move things from the talk stage to the action stage. So a lot of that just went dormant because they have association all across the Caribbean. Some are still active.
Yes.
Right, and we look at some of those issues related to men and so on. But International Men's Day, what does it really hope to achieve for men? This year, the theme is making a difference for men and boys.
Yes.
That's the
International.
international team,
Yes.
and the local team is leading by example. So what do we hope to achieve by International Men's Day? How does it redound to the benefit of men in society?
Well, like I said before, it's really to highlight the contribution of men, letting know that they are being thought of. Because we hear a lot about single mothers, but we never hear about single fathers, and they are there. We hear a lot about the contribution that women are making in this field and that field, but it's barely we hear about the contribution of men when they are making their contribution in certain fields. So it's really to highlight the contribution and as well to address some issues. Some of the issues, men leading by example, we realize that women are saying that men are not living up to the standards of leadership as well. They're looking for men to lead, right? But
some men
to lead.
We can't generalize, you see.
Yes.
When we say men, so we can't paint all men with the very same brush.
Yes, definitely.
Because there are a number of men who are leading by example.
Leading by example, yes. And we saw some
who are
yesterday.
supporting their children.
Yes.
And you see, with all of the talk now about gender equality, which is very important, you must consider the empowerment of men. You cannot empower one group of people over another if you're looking for equality. And the contribution of men is important to the development of the country. As a matter of fact, men were the ones really, women were always in the home doing the management of the home and all of that. They were out there really doing the technical and hard work, although we were making our contribution, and it was just people, it was never recognized because we don't know as the homemaker. The man was the breadwinner. And so you now have to know, with all of what is happening to men, the focus must be equally placed on both men and women.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mr. Agard, you're president of the National Men's Council. How would you define, in your own words, how would you define manhood?
Manhood? I would define manhood.
How would you, let me put it, how would you define a man?
Well, I think a man is, in a sense, the ultimate creation of God, that you will go way back into his image and likeness, that actually encompasses women as well, because of the fact that man does not necessarily always mean...
No. I'm not talking in the generic sense. We are not talking here meaning man to mean man and woman. I'm talking gender specific. How would you define a man?
Well, I was coming to that actually.
Okay.
So, because of the fact that men don't always be seen in a way that they're living up to their potential and all these different things. What I was trying to give you is a run back as to where it started,
Okay.
that by creation point, that the word man itself does not necessarily just mean the male, but it encompasses much more than that. This is why man, as you would go to the story and what's not. But men, on a whole, have a certain duty according to how it is being given by all nations, where men are the one who are called out to do the work. Men are the one who are called into wars. Men are basically the providers and the protectors. And also, they could always even look after the very things that women are dealing with. But
the definition that you just gave, we can say that, of course, women are providers, women are protectors, there are women who are fighting in wars.
Perfect.
And that sort of a thing. So those things are not really specific to male, even though they are more.
That is going to take you in the realm of the gender roles that are changing. The gender roles are changing. What applied to back in them times can't work today.
Actually, there's nothing specific other than the genetical makeup between man and woman. Everything else. But what you have is a predominant area in which we exist. So the man predominantly would be called into wars. The man predominantly would be the provider way back. But now a lot of things are changing, that the sense of providing is no longer the predominant role of the man, but still is being predominant into in wars and what's not. So in terms of the specific nature of manhood, if you want to put it into the realm of the gender or the reproductive role, then you'll have to define it according to how you are made up at birth, whether you're born with a man genitals or a woman genitals, and then you could actually define it from that. But I wasn't defining manhood in that genetic sense. I was actually looking at it in the sense of society, and even into religion and all kind of different ways that men have been looked at throughout the thousands of years that we do exist here.
So the definition of a man goes beyond just having a penis.
Definitely.
So sometimes I really wonder, because there are some men who define themselves by that, and they live according to that, and so therefore they wield it all over the place, and they have children here and there, and then they have this warped idea of manhood and that sort of a thing. But of course that makes you male or female from, but it's a biological aspect.
Men are told they're supposed to be rough and tough, while women are supposed to be nurturers. And so they carry that thing, and that some of them define their manhood by that.
But let me comment on that a little bit. Now, the theme leading by example, what we have to look at is that, especially us here in the Caribbean, the example we had set before us is an European example. That example does not necessarily go along with our ancestral example. So when you see men behave in a certain way in this time, it is based on that example that was set by the European culture. Now, if you go back in history, though, that culture is not our culture. That example is not our example. But until we find ourselves back to where we're supposed to be, we're going to be struggling with this issue in society for a very long time.
But you see, it's important because culture plays a very important role. This talks about your values, your belief, and all of those things that affect the society. And so the manhood for the Caribbean man comes out of our own culture, even though, as Mr. Agard said, it was the European culture. We have now evolved and have come into our own cultural practices and values and all of that, and hence there is where you find the male, the definition of male manhood has changed from the European culture into our own Caribbean culture, because we see the manhood of men different in the Caribbean culture, in our own setting.
One of the reasons why I asked that question is that we always have to think about identity.
Yes.
And one can argue that sometimes, in some cases, in some environments, there is what you call a male identity crisis
Yes. Yeah.
that obviously leads to other problems where males are concerned. And sometimes that identity crisis has to do with how men are socialized
Yeah.
Yes.
within our society,
yeah.
whether they have the good male role models, which we'll come to and so on, to help them in their own formation
Right.
in terms of who they are and that sort of a thing. Now, what programs does the Department of Gender Affairs have to advance the rights of men and boys? Because I will be honest, the Department of Gender Affairs is seen basically as a department for women. Now, you are the only male that works there.
That is,
So glad you're saying it.
I,
Not
listen,
me.
I think the way the department was structured and managed way back when, and when women were just coming out and going into the workforce and having all of these issues and so, like I said, the focus was on them. So the department focus at that time was empowering women. And because we thought men were in a better position, they were the ones calling all the shots and so on. But one of the things that we didn't look out for was way down the road when things would change. The roles and all of that would change. And hence we found ourselves in this situation where people still see the Department of Gender Affairs, even though it's slowly changing.
So would you admit-
Listen, there's a feminization of services in our ministry. If you look at how it is made up, it's mostly women. And it's not because that we don't want it to change, but men are not going into social work. They don't want those type of jobs. And hence the issue. I would like to get 50-50 in gender affairs. I'm putting out a call for male officers to be there because we know we have issues that are unique to men. They alone can't do it in the department. They need somebody else there with him to help him to do that. So that is a change that I would like to see in the ministry, more men, and we put in all the call, but they're just not coming
So
forward.
would you say that the initial objectives and goals of the department, how the department was structured, and the sort of issues that were being promoted by the department back then, more women's issues and so on, that this has played a part in the marginalization of men?
I don't have the facts to support that. And I don't really want to go into waters that I can't support. What I do know, we had programs for men, but it was on a small scale, a very small scale. And having looked at what was happening, and it was so difficult for us to reach men because of the stigma of the department and so on, it's a woman thing and so on. We reach out to men organizations, but men organizations are not easy to work, easy to deal with. And hence, we have to finally move in order to move some of in order to get programs really up and running for men. We have to turn to the situation of helping men to organize themselves into group to deal with their issues, because they feel we won't fear in dealing with the issues, because really and truly there are some things that are unique to men that women really can't deal with. And so on. We look to the National Men's Association. We had an association before this one, and they were able to make inroads into legislation, so they were doing a good thing. But then all of a sudden they became non-functional, and we tried to revive them again. Hence we have now turned to Mr. Agard and his council now to see where we can go with this thing, because there are a lot of issues out there affecting men.
Right.
And just talking and calling the radio and saying this and saying that and all, they need to mobilize and come together to address the issues. One person on the radio talking the same thing 20 times. Nobody hearing you. The noise have drawn you out. You need there's strength in numbers. Join the National Men's Association and talk about the changes that you want to see. And I'll be happy to work with. I have been working with them, and I'll be very happy to continue to help push some of their issues, because, as I keep saying, they have issues.
Mrs. Christopher, you said something, and I want Mr. Agard to tell me if he agrees with what you said, because I heard him chuckle when you said it. that men's organizations are not easy to deal with.
That is the truth.
I have dealt with them. I have dealt with them.
Mr. Agard, would you
From
agree with that view?
experience.
I definitely would agree with it, and I would even like to make some mention concerning even my observation and experience being around groups. Now, there are two areas to reason this, and I'll just reason it from. You
Go
want
ahead.
to say something?
Go ahead, go ahead.
Now, we have started the council, and the council actually started based on some push from Mrs. Christopher, because we actually started a few meetings where we had the very first day we had at least 21 men who were there, and Troy Watson, who was then a part of the
He was the male officer then.
right, he was the male officer. You know, he pulled this thing together, and you know, we started a meeting there, and the next meeting I think we had about 9 from the 21, and then the next meeting I think we had like 3 from the 9, and it just went like that. So I think I had a conversation with Miss Christopher about it, and then she decided to call up some men and so on, and we met right there into the building with Gender Affairs, and we actually started to have some meetings there, and out of that came the St. Kitts National Men's Council. So we really had a big help from Mrs. Christopher, and you know, we really give thanks that she would have pushed like that. However, Mrs. Christopher is Mrs. Christopher, so there are certain things that she mentioned she would never know concerning like how to deal with certain situation with men. But in observing beyond that area now, we know Sunday would have made 3 years since we started this St. Kitts National Men's Council, and we had at least 50 plus men pass through, but we only have at least 7 to 10 core members who regularly attend meetings. And maybe this is a good opportunity to say that we have meetings the 1st and 3rd Wednesday of every month, which today would have been one of those days, but we postponed for today. And you know, we had all sorts of men, all different types from all different walks of life, religion, you name it, come through. However, it seemed like unless there is no direct benefit, may it be financial, whatever the cause is, men don't seem to want to be involved when it comes to things like this. You call for a jam, you don't have a room big enough for them. You call for, you know, certain things that does not necessarily speak to the needs of men in terms of positive vibes. You don't necessarily see them in that area of support. And I'll even mention this, that I've been to even one of the church men organization, and the room was filled with men and women because they brought their wives, or their wives brought them. However, the following day they're supposed to meet up to have a little gathering, and you know, I'm not a part of the church, but I told them I'll come along and see what they're doing. And I went there, I waited for like close to 2 hours, and I only saw like 3 men.
You know, men have always come together. The coming together of men is not the issue. Men have always come together. They formed homosocial groups. They come together to drink. They come together to play football. They come together to play basketball. They come together to play dominoes. They come together and they talk about sports, and they talk about girls, and they talk about sex, and they talk about cars. I don't think men do not come together. They get down the Bay Road, and they're down there, and they drink themselves away, and they joke and they carry on.
Definitely.
However, they probably need to go deeper. Sometimes men do not speak about their pain.
Yes.
Men do not speak about what is really going on with them. They bottle a lot of things up. They may talk to you and so on, but they're not sharing it with what is really going on. They self-medicate.
Because we want coming together as a group, you know. We meet.
Well, it's not organized. It's informal. It's not really organized.
Right. We meet them. We meet them where they are.
Mm-hmm.
We have done things at the ferry dock. We have gone into male-dominated places. We have gone into churches. We have gone even on basketball court, myself and another officer, steady here one night. People thought we were playing basketball just to get to talk to them. And so on. And I think the sports department and all of those places that have all of these men could do more to mobilize and organize men. Well, they're organized for the sport, but inside those settings, they can deal with the men issues that are affecting them.
Yeah.
And we will work along with them. There are avenues, that there are pathways that they can take. And they can come.
I think that there are some of those issues are dealt with. For example, issues of discipline,
Yes.
issues of perseverance, for example. Because in order to belong to a football team and so on, you have to train.
Yeah.
Right.
You have to practice. There are certain things that you can't do. For example, you can't use foul language, and you're taught to be respectful
Right,
of
and it's
one
a
another.
good-
So those are things that
Right.
actually
Yeah.
Right.
form men as well.
And it's a good opportunity to the message that you have for them to put them into these little packages, because you already have them. They're already there. They're going to come to play the sport. What is wrong with, okay, you come in to play sport for an hour and a half. Give me a half an hour. Let me bring the message. Let me hear what the issues are. And these are the kind of things that we are looking for in the Department of Gender Affairs, the kind of partnership.
Yes.
And when they have the bigger issues, then we could advocate on their behalf because we're working with them. But as I said, we now have the National Men's Association. So as long as they could identify the issues, the Department of Gender Affairs is...
No, Mr. Egan, what is the mission statement of the National Men's Association? Why do you exist? Because you don't exist basically just as another domino club or a football club
Definitely
or a
not.
drinking club. So what is the reason for your existence? How would you like to see men and be a part of your organization?
Well, before I mention that though, I wanted to comment on some of the exchange that you and Mrs. Christopher had concerning men not talking about their problems and different things. And actually, I just would respectfully want to disagree with that comment and put forward this. Now, we heard a lot of talk some time back where you're talking about gangs and different things and so on. Now we seem to like to use the term gangs when we're talking about a certain set of people, and then we have these top class gangs, and we give them top class names, and we recognize them in public. But gangs are gangs, and as I think you mentioned something about men grouping and so on. So you know what you said there was very good, because we group up around sports. But as I said previous to that though, men get involved when they see there's a benefit for them.
Yeah.
Once there's a personal benefit, be it the spotlight, be it some attention, be it some money, as long as there's a direct benefit, of course they will group up. So whether it is football, basketball, track and field, all these different things, of course you're going to see men come around, but you were
I
saying
see them
something?
group up in things pertaining to their health. And I could never forget the first time I saw a large group of men in any one place was at Marion. And it had all to do about sexuality. The room was full to overflowing. So anything to do with their sexuality, good, they're going to come together. Anything to do with, well, a lot of with the diabetic situation in St. Kitts, I think they're getting concerned about the health, because I could see them walking all over the place when the belly start to get big out there, so they run all over, try to run and all of that and so they're into the health thing and so on, into the sport. These are large areas, I'm saying, that we got to try to penetrate. And I really and truly, I want some people call in and tell us how to get into these, how to get going with these large groups where men are found. The dominoes and so is easy, because you go there, you sit with them, and you could get the message across and so on. And it's something that they continue as a form of recreation week in, week out. So you
But I
could
would really
schedule
like to
stuff
finish
with
what I
them.
was saying.
Yeah,
Certainly, go ahead.
Because now that you mentioned domino again, I actually forget to list that one. Now, men do speak about their problem, and men do group up, and men do exchange positive conversations. However, if it is not into the sight of certain people, then they think is non-existent, and that is not so. Because you don't see the sun come out, that don't mean the sun don't exist. So men do that. I'm a part of a Rastafarian group. We talk about the issues. We talk about all sorts of issues. When these young men are in gangs, they talk about their issues.
Yeah.
So it's not that men don't talk about their issues. People would call me from time to time to reason about some of their personal issues. But because it's not listed into the council list book or in some other person's book, it don't mean it don't exist. What need to happen is that we need to stop speak bad about things that we don't understand. You know, I'll give you an example. One meeting I went to, and they were talking about graffiti and how young men like to paint graffiti on walls. I made a suggestion. Why not have a graffiti competition? Why not every 6 months you work with a theme and you have a graffiti competition instead of trying to harass the youngster them and trying to put them in prison because they're painting on a wall?
It's creativity.
You know? Exactly.
Yeah.
The next thing, you mentioned something about the sports, and I think Miss Christopher was suggesting, you know, at that point they could get involved in certain conversations and what's not. We have to remember the persons who are involved in sports are involved in sports for sports. And more than likely, whoever is leading that charge might not be involved in those type of conversations that we would like them to be involved in. It would be good if we have good collaboration to have people come in and have different conversations with them and so on, because you have them group up already. That is fine. But sometimes, you know, you have to tailor that specifically, that you definitely know that you're looking for some kind of impact, and, you know, at least have some sort of way to see if it work, have some indicators set up and so on.
We're looking for development.
Right. So I just wanted to comment on that aspect, to say that it's not that men don't talk, they do talk. It's who they talk to, you know, and it's not that they don't group up, as you rightly say. It's the types of groups, and as I would have mentioned earlier, it's the type of direct benefit that they will see coming for them.
Right.
You know, right.
Now, Mrs. Christopher mentioned something about sexuality. Do we speak about it enough? And I am not talking about sex, because sex is over-talked and overdone. Let's face it. Everything we talk about sex, and men like to, especially men, men like to boast about sex because it's an area in which they think defines them, and an area in which they think, you know, gives them some sort of identity. And it's an area, of course, where sometimes they feel, you know, less than if they think that they are not performing in a certain way, and if women speak about them in a certain way. It affects their ego.
Society.
It is different to sexuality, because sexuality is much more than sex.
Yeah.
Now, yesterday, the gentleman who spoke at the International Men's Award, which we'll come to, which took place at OTI,
Yes.
said something, and I took note of it. He says, we do not train our men to be men. We train our men to not to be women.
Yeah.
What do you think of that, Mrs. Christopher?
They have a way of saying, we are the ones who had men most of the time because we socialized them. I guess we socialized them along the cultural and social lines that were set for us back in the time when we were socializing them. And so we socialized them along that line, and very little conversation or very little has changed as we continue to socialize them. They grow up to be men, and then we come now with all this new information, want to push it on them and expect them to react to it at the same time, because remember, the way we socialize them, everything's already ingrained and it can't come out in a day. It takes time to unlearn or to develop new skills and so on, how to deal with certain things and so on. And so I believe the situation where he said, instead of teaching them, we teach them not to be women, I believe that's a mistake that we made. That's a mistake that we made.
Mm-hmm.
And a part of that is because sometimes the men are absent in the home, and the woman is trying to do the job of a man and a woman. So
Right.
that could be part of it.
There is this book that was written by a Jamaican lady called My Mother Who Fathered Me. And really and truly, can women these single mother households actually raise men?
Boy.
It's a question that
raise a
I
boy.
have, because all what they're seeing around them and so on in terms of the socialization
behavior.
is female behavior. The male is absent.
Could I
The
comment on that?
male figure, the father figure, is absent.
Inside that particular
But
home.
before Edgar go on it, I do believe that a man has to be present in his child life, especially if it's a boy, right? There are some issues that are particular to male that women won't be able to address
Such as?
effectively. The whole issue about sexuality and so on.
But that is not. That is. Yeah. Go ahead.
and manhood and stuff. How, to be a man, you have to know it is to be a man yourself.
And if you don't know,
If you don't know, as a woman, if you don't know what you will be doing is training them based on your expectation of
What
a
is
man
it to be a man, Dion? Tell me.
But a man, to be a man is based on what was said yesterday. In my opinion, it was correct. A man is when you can take up your responsibility and be accountable for your action.
Yeah, but that is not unique to men.
Women do the same.
Women do the same thing.
Yes, but as Egan said.
But maybe what we need to say is that we have become so accustomed to men in our societies, in Caribbean societies, some of them abdicating their responsibility, that we come to think that being a man is about just being responsible.
Yes.
But that should be something that is ingrained in the definition of being a man.
and so
Yes.
in the single family, in the
sing-
single parent family, it is difficult for a woman by herself to do all of that.
That is correct.
Yes.
So men, by nature, should be responsible.
Be responsible.
If they are not, it is not a part of their nature. Would you agree?
Somewhat. And some of us need to be taught how to be responsible.
Well, it's
We-
about
yeah.
socialization
Yeah,
too.
we need nurturing.
We need
terms of,
nurturing.
in that area of our life. Of course, some are born leaders, and some men are trained, have to be trained and be nurtured to be
And
leaders.
that is why it brings
Yeah.
us to the point where men must lead by example. Again, too, men don't have to live in the same home to help to raise a child. Those men who are out there and know in a sense how to do some sort of parenting or socialization could assist with men in other with boys in other families and so on.
Yes,
But
but
you
what
don't
I have
have that.
found is that there are some men who never had a father in their life and who find it very, very difficult
To reach out to other
to father
families.
their own children. There are others who use that example of not having a father and say, well, look, I never had a father
Look at
and
me.
I don't want my children to go through the experience that I had. So you have the two things.
Yes.
See, there's a lot
Yes.
of factors. There's a
Yeah.
lot of factors impinging on this whole issue of male manhood. There's no
Yes.
one thing that affected.
Could I just say a piece there? Now, the force identifying area of a man is his biological makeup. That's the
Yes.
force area. The other areas depends on socializing and religion,
Precisely.
right? So,
Education.
and education. Well, that will build into almost
Socializing.
those two. Now, one of the things we keep forgetting is that I didn't have a father by my side growing up, but you know what I had? I had his genes, and still have them, and so his DNA is inside me. My mother DNA is also in me. So whether he's around or not, there are certain things that I'm predisposed to do because of his DNA. And I must give an example. I used to up and down like fighting dogs and all these different things. Then one day I heard some guy saying, "But he just like your father, you know, that's exactly what your father used to do." Now my father was not there. So why am I doing that? Because genetically I'm predisposed to do that. So there are some things in terms of men growing up. Sometimes they don't necessarily need to have a man present because they're genetically predisposed to behave a certain way. Now, saying genetically predisposed does not mean cause, because you don't have to do it. It's just that the influence is greater because of that genetic makeup. So you find sometimes we forget that. So people don't identify their children easily because they don't identify themselves. Because if I have a child, not if, well, I have a daughter, I understand my daughter because I understand me and I understand her mother. So whatever she do would never surprise me. You see, so and this is something that we need to engage our men and women into and understanding themselves. Now, the way we are speaking here is as if, well, men doing so bad and women doing so great, and it's not true. You see, we're equal in this thing. It's just that because men are, in the sense of religion and socializing to some degree, are looked upon to take the lead, we try to hold them accountable for that sometimes when it suits certain people.
Yeah.
You see? So, now look at the reality of this. In our parliament, mostly men there. So, why do we have laws that would push men out of the family? Why do we have laws that seem to soothe the women more than the men when the men making those laws?
Mr. Agard, you've brought up an extremely important point because it's one of the questions that I have. Are our laws gender biased?
Of course they are.
Yes.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
Our laws are
Yes.
gender
Gender
biased,
bias, yes.
especially when it comes to the family.
Yeah.
And yesterday, of course, at the International Men's Award, that story that was done by Tatum about the marriage
Yeah.
is pregnant with a lot of the issues that
That we're facing
actually
now.
Yeah.
face in our society. Reasons why men really do not want to get married. Because the laws are, leaning towards
Yeah,
them.
they're skewed
The
toward the
protection of
women.
the women.
It's skewed towards the protection of the woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And believe me, I don't have much problem with it, because I think that some point coming on, because when we look back like maybe 100 years back coming along, you find that because of what happened in slavery, where they used to breed men in some parts of the Caribbean like Antigua, Barbuda, and I think some say in Nevis as well, you find you're doing that there for men, to men for a few hundred years. Definitely their offspring would go with that genetic makeup that they don't have to be accountable or responsible for family.
Yeah.
And we see that happening only in the Caribbean. You don't see that happening in China, India, not even in Africa that is happening. That is only happening here. And that is because of that DNA that is transcend through time of this practice.
It probably happens in the other, but to a much
very
lesser
small,
degree.
very small.
But you see what is happening all the time is that men not really taking up their responsibility of fatherhood.
Yes.
And fatherhood is not just about giving child support. It's not just about giving child support. It's just you know, and it should not be something. The giving of the financial support should not be something that is ordered by a court.
Yes.
I always say that all the time. It looks so bad that a court
Have to order you to support your child.
has to order you to support your own child, and sometimes you are doing it so grudgingly, just to give that child some money or what's not and what's not. I mean. And you don't give the child anything else.
Yes.
You don't give that child the emotional support, the physical and psychological and all of that sort of a support that the child actually needs, even more than the money.
And who do you think
I
put that law in
always-
place?
I
Huh?
Who do you
always-
think put that law in place?
Should I repeat it?
I always wonder though, in
Men.
terms of men
Yeah.
not taking on the responsibility, this one really always have me. It's something that always amazes me. I must put it that way. A man will have a very good relationship with a woman, and as soon as she get pregnant, some of them, I can't say all of them, he runs away when he's actually needed. I don't understand that.
What do you mean you don't understand? He never want a
He
big
don't
belly.
want the responsibility. Everything is fine while she's not pregnant. But the moment she get pregnant, the problem starts.
Because he
Why?
wasn't.
He running away from
He wasn't in it for the big belly. That's not what he was in it for.
But this is a matter of taking responsibility.
Okay, but I would
taking responsibility.
I would say that though that happened, but there's other situations where women keep the fathers away from the children.
Yes, you have that too. On the other end, you have that. And
You have that as well. So you have
But-
no, you have some women. Actually, you have some toxic women.
But let me tell you something. That ain't just happen overnight like that, That's a relationship that I don't even know how to say how they keep it alive, because that has got to be something that has been the underlying factors in that relationship where a woman just don't want a man to have anything to do with the child.
Yes,
if you sit down and talk to both of them, it started over something or from something.
And then there are some women who use their children as
Of course.
weapons against the
Yes,
man.
You have that, yes, you have that.
They're using it as weapon, and they're threatening the man.
And they don't want
They're
man
going to carry
move
them
on.
to go lock them up, and they're going to carry them to court, and they're going to
Yeah.
do all kinds of things. Women are no angels,
That's right.
just as men are no angels either, and we know that.
Yeah.
Well, I think we are angels, though.
The thing is though, is that I don't understand why we always look at the man, at the person, and not look at fixing the behavior, because people are generally good enough. People are generally good. It's the behavior that is the problem, and there is where we have the big issue, because it's either we don't know how to fix it, we can't fix it, or we don't intend to fix it. I don't know.
That is correct.
I just want to say something to that little exchange. Now, what we have to do, I mean, we could talk these things all day, but sometimes we just have to put forward ideas of solutions and what's not. Now, we see what happens with the court, the laws that they have in place, and we know, as we discussed just a few minutes ago, that they're skewed toward the protection of women and what's not. But seeing that society basically have evolved through experience and knowledge, the law should not remain the same.
No, I agree
So
with that. They should
if
change.
society have evolved, the law should also evolve to maintain the order and structure that we are hoping to see the society function. And so now we are seeing that, of course, some men gonna try to twist it, some women gonna try to twist it, but we should really sit down and have a good conversation and put some new laws in place, or at least amend those that are there, and have them more balanced, and at least try to eliminate some of these potential problems that exist, and just move forward. So this conversation, I hope that some of the lawmakers are actually listening. This conversation actually came up at the council level, and we're actually hoping to have these type of conversations as well, to see if we could get in there and start making some changes, at least effect change to some degree, where we will have some lawmakers on our side to assist us in that. Forwarding.
There are some women, Mrs. Christopher, who don't want the father to have anything to do with the child. All he must do is bring his money and come.
Well, that I would not support, because the child supposed to
how
have
would I
parents.
feel?
And
How would I
I-
feel
right.
that I must only bring my money and come, and I must have nothing to do with the child? They don't want the child with me, they don't want anything like that.
And
It must be heartbreaking.
Right, yeah, right.
And also tell the child a lot of bad things about the father. The
Yes.
father
Oh,
never,
yes.
never
I-
do
I-
anything
I
like
would-
Oh yes, your father dead standing up, and all kinds of
What's
things.
that?
Which don't necessarily work, because as a child is very curious.
And will come to see the truth.
A child is very curious. When you tell a child don't do something,
They want
and you
to know
don't
why.
explain it to them, they become curious and go
try to
try
find out.
what you tell them not to do. So that necessarily don't work where women tell their children bad thing about their fathers. So it sometimes creates a curiosity that they want to know about their father. Sometimes they may ask people, they probably find a way to go look for their father and what's next.
Men want to know about their fathers. And I think a lot of them are disappointed. In our society, a number of men are disappointed because they don't really know their father. And I've come across men who said to me, but I don't really know my father, Or my father don't really have any meaning to me.
And
in my life and so on. Some people say that some of these men tend to gravitate towards deviant behavior, but I don't believe so. I think women have done a very good job of raising males all by themselves. But it is unfair to women
Even
to
with that,
raise
it
their
took as a
children
child
and the
thing.
males.
But
alone.
it's never by themselves though. It's never by themselves.
It's never really by themselves. But you know what I mean? Because we have the school and we have the
We have society,
and we have society,
families.
we have society, and we
Yeah.
have families and so on.
And sometimes those
I
are
mean,
greater
in the home,
influence. But in the home, sometimes does not have the influence that we assuming it has.
But whichever
Yeah.
way we put it, they should be involved in their children's lives, and they should not be kept out of the lives of the children. We should not burden the children with our relationship issues. They have nothing to do with it. A child needs to have a good relationship with both father and mother. And sometimes it's coming from both sides.
Yes.
A father don't want to have anything to do with the child, a mother don't want anything to do, want the child to have anything to do with the father. And it's time that we stop this nonsense, because a
And
lot
it's
of what is
affecting the children.
right, a
Yes,
lot
yeah.
of what is happening. You see a lot of angry children out there, and those are some of the underlying factors. I mean, I'm raised by my mother.
Angry
For
males.
25 years, I never see a father yet.
angry men.
And I am asking, and all of a sudden, a man pop up in my life and say he's my father. And when I tried to get to the bottom of the story, she didn't tell me she was pregnant, or she didn't want to have nothing to do with me. It is hard for a child. It is
Yes.
very, very difficult. And when a child begin to ask question, well, how come we live by ourselves? Well, what happened to daddy? Where daddy? And so on. The parents, some parents will just shut them down because they don't want to entertain that kind of conversation and stuff like that.
Because they don't want those sort of memories of the man, whatever went awry in that relationship, they want to erase it. And
And
sometimes in trying to erase it, what they do, because they don't get along with the man, they don't want the child to get along with the man either. That can't be right.
No, it's not right. No.
But I think when you say we're not angels, and you hear me comment slightly and say we are, because we do have a lot of good mothers and a lot of good fathers.
We do.
You know?
Yes, we
and
do.
and the thing is,
But you
those-
know, this program is to talk about the good men.
The good men. Yes.
It-
We have
it's
we have
okay.
dedicated an entire program talking about all the women.
Women,
But
yeah.
you see, the truth of the matter is
You can't
that we
get away
cannot
with some things.
get away in terms of just talking about men without talking about women, and talking about women without talking about
Also
men.
interrelated
And we do it
and
just-
We're
dependent on each other.
interrelated.
Yeah.
So
Also dependent on each other.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It
but
has good men out there, you know, when it warms my heart when I see a man taking a child to the daycare. I see them in the square sitting, the children playing. And I look on and I watch and I say, Lord, if we could have more of these men. They take the time, they take the children out, maybe to the beach, or they drive them out or something. Spend a little time with the children, because that is all they need. They're not a part of all of this hoo and this hooray.
Yeah.
So why bring them into the middle of things? Just spend some time with them, because let me tell you, while you are up, while you're going down, they are coming up, and they are going to find out the truth, whether you look after them or you did not look after them.
Yeah.
they will
And
not.
a lot of boys out there, a lot of boys, they're raised by their parents, they're good boys and so on. But I keep wondering, why is it this child is so good and doing so well, and you never hear about a man in his life, a father in his life? What it is that nobody ever talk about a father, all they talk about is a mother.
Yeah.
And that is not good. That is not a good thing.
Okay, so how does the department, Mrs. Christopher and Diane, can help to socialize, especially young boys, as productive members of the society? How?
Okay. Well, we launched a program in 2016 called the Boys Mentorship Program. That on our part, the Department of Gender Affairs part, that's what we are doing. We attach each boy to a mentor. Those boys who may not have like a positive male role model as a father, they are fatherless. So we attach them to promote certain values and morals and help them to socialize positively and understand what it is to be a man and what the society is expecting of them, with their role in the family, raise them to be a family man as it is.
They're not fatherless. They have a father because they could not have been born without a father.
Yes.
This is not the case of the Virgin Mary and some
Yeah, yeah.
miracle. They had to have sex, and sperm had to meet egg.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree.
As far back as 2007, the department started working with boys. And the whole issue that led to that was that Morris Williams. I don't know if you know Morris Williams. Morris Williams was in child protection at the time. He was the director of child protection. And he was speaking about the formation of gangs in the Federation. And nobody was paying any attention. As a matter of fact, they said there was no gangs in the Federation. And we saw what was happening in the schools. And we started talking with the schools to try to identify those boys who were beginning to gravitate to those gangs, to try to do some socialization with them based on the fact that the school was working with us. And we had some Peace Corps came in here, and they were working with us towards that program. And one of the first programs we sat down to discuss, they realized boys was mostly out there playing and wasn't helping in the home and everything and so on. We wanted to socialize them, to take up not just the, as they say, tie the heifer and leg of the bull or wife or something like that. Yeah.
tie the head, yes.
And,
tie the heifer and leg of the bull.
Right. And so we said, no, we got to bring these boys under control. And so they did a project. I would never forget that project, down in the Challengers school down there, the big community center. And that was specifically geared towards training the boys to engage in household, doing housework. And it went down very well. But like I say, we didn't continue the project, and that was a fault on our part, because the money should have come from wherever to continue. Because maybe today we wouldn't have all of, well, we would have something, but not to the extent if we had started early, if we had come out around that time and really come out in full early, we would have been able to catch some of those boys who drop out of school and so on and so forth.
Yes.
And then, when Dian came along, Dian came, and being a young man himself, Dian got involved in working with them. I think your first thing was what, getting the council,
the student government.
the student, because we wanted a voice from children. And we sat down, we talked about how we could get a children's voice and so. And we said, okay, they have some kind of something exists, whether it was the student council or whatever. And he went out in the schools and identified male focal points. We were looking for male focal points to work with in the school. And hence, that is part of this responsibility that he has today.
Right, so the boys mentorship program.
Yeah, the boys mentorship program. And this is different from a normal mentorship program. Of course, the mentors meet with them, expected to meet with them 2 hours per week, roughly 8 hours per month. And the program is intended to change change the behavior and the mindset as well, because we realize that some of them have some mindset, and like Agard said, sometimes the behavior that they have, the negative behavior that they have, they didn't pick it up at home. Sometimes it's peer pressure when they're amongst the peers. Because I've known of parents that did the best, especially mothers that did the best, that gave them everything, taught them everything. But however, the peers had more influence on them than but same can be said too. They pick up some negative behavior at home, and there are some homes that are just dysfunctional, and we need to work on the whole family because it's just dysfunctional, and there are a lot of issues there. So we come up with this program to help to address some of those issues, the dysfunction and the negative behavior, and the negative, a whole negative view that the public have on boys. Of course, we started it in 2016. Like I said, the department by itself teaching life on social skills every year. At least 3 times a year, we bring them together and teach them morals, values, how to write a resume, and so on. We even taught them skills like small appliances repairs and auto mechanics to prepare them for life itself. That's what the program is. We want to prepare these young boys for life, whatever they may come out to be. We want it to be positive.
I have been on 4th Street, and sometimes you have guys who are sitting down on 4th Street, and sometimes you have a girl who is passing, and the fella says, "Good afternoon," and she ain't look up to now. She passed straight with she head in the air. And the boy start to abuse her. You ain't look good. Hmm? You ain't see all them boil in your face. And all kinds of things. Why? And I often ask why. He feels rejected.
Yeah.
He feels he's not being paid any sort of attention.
Yeah.
He lashes out.
And he lashes out. He lashes out.
But why wouldn't I ask the second question though? Why did not she respond?
And then the question is, why did she not respond?
Let me
Maybe
give
she
you
thinks she's better than he is.
Let me give you
or
another
maybe
scenario.
she thinks that he's going to come with something fresh. I don't
So
know.
we
Let me
see,
give you another
we see the two
scenario.
of them have problems.
The two of them have problems.
I'll give you another scenario. At Mat, I saw this young man, telling this lady, nice, well-dressed lady, good afternoon, but she passed him straight, the same thing. But there was this ragged man with his pants under the bum, shut out his pants and everything, and she just went up and hugged him. So,
Right.
yeah.
So I say that because I want to get to another point. And the point is that sometimes our men in the society feel worthless. They feel rejected. They're hopeless. They feel as though they're on the margins. You spoke earlier about the gangs and so on, and you're dressed in all blue.
Okay.
But when people feel like that, we get a negative reaction.
Yeah.
People in gangs, they form gangs because somehow they're looking for
A
something.
sense of belonging.
They're looking for a sense of belonging and so on and so on and that sort of a thing. And I must and men and crime, men and violence is also a theme that we have seen in St. Kitts and Nevis for a very long time. Especially gun crimes and so on. And really now what I am seeing is that something is making a difference for our boys and our men with the peace initiative. For months we haven't heard.
Something was missing, and so I'm not sure who put the hand on it, but something was missing for a long time to get to this point where we are now.
I think that most intelligent person know what was missing. The problem is, were they willing to address it? There are a lot of things happening in our society that we know the answer to, but we're just not willing to fix it. And I'm happy that there was some initiative to go forward.
And so therefore we were really not paying attention to our men and young boys as we should in terms of this antisocial
Well, and that was a
behavior.
call-
We were
that
not
was a call-
addressing it.
It was a call for help. All of this antisocial behavior was a call for help,
Yeah.
Pay attention to me, see me here, do something for me.
Yes.
So now that the focus is on them, we see the result. The thing is to make it sustainable, because people got to stop talk and hide behind the money and come out and help do things.
That's right.
Now I have
Before we go to you, I want to open the lines because I think there are people who might want to call in. We'll continue our discussion, but I'll open
alright.
the lines. The overseas number to call is 1-718-577-2916. That's the overseas number, and the local number is 465-25-55. We await your calls.
Good afternoon, Mr. Williams.
Good afternoon. Working for you.
And good afternoon to Miss Christopher there.
Yes, good afternoon.
And good afternoon to the young guy.
Good afternoon.
The other guy, the hope and the panelist.
Mr. Agard.
Mr. Agard, yes.
yeah, blessed King.
All right, man. Now, Mr. Williams just said something, right? You see a lady, you see a guy was going up 4th Street. I mean, a girl was going up 4th Street and a girl was there sitting down. A guy was there sitting down. And he called her to the girl, and the girl ain't say nothing. Sometimes these girls are harassed by these guys, So maybe she don't get harassed and she don't know how much she not answering. So
That-
we cannot blame the young ladies them for that,
That is also a possibility.
right? But I know some young ladies so too. When you call them and you tell them good things, they don't want to reach back to you or say nothing to you. Sometimes you don't even know them. And then you say, good afternoon, sweetheart, how are you? Mr. Will you call me sweetheart? Good afternoon. Okay, good afternoon, darling. Good afternoon, young lady. How are you? You all right? Mister, you know me? You know me? Me don't know you, you don't know me. I'm from Sinkit. Where you from? You understand? And all these you get from them. You understand? So I believe that the young, we got capable young man here, and try to respect the young woman them. Some of them, because some of them very, very, very disobedient to them and very rude to them. They call out to them and then answer them, they give them all kind of word. And tell them all kind of negative things. You understand? I make joke, I'm a man that make joke. I love girls, and I always make joke with girls when I see them. And when I see them, I just call out to them. If they don't answer me, just let them go. You understand? Sometimes, Mr. Remember, sometimes I catch them from the bus, or I catch them somewhere. I say, Mr. Remember, tell me before she started to trouble me. And then I study, I say, yeah, I remember. You understand? And you know, sometimes they're not in a good mood neither. Sometimes all the time they're in a good mood. Sometimes everybody got a little frustration and a little problem. But I with the peace initiative and so, I believe that the young man and them, like they're thinking different. And a lot of them trying to work for them little money and put something aside because they realize that what's taking place with them, especially those who got children. Just imagine you just got 2 children, they don't even 5 years yet, and you got to lose your life and go leave them. That ain't good enough. And I commend the young man them, all of those young men who trying to work hard for themselves and work hard for the children and the girlfriend or the wife or whatever. I commend them, and I want them to continue to do that, to do, and other young men to do likewise. A wonderful program, God bless.
Right, thanks. And the question we must ask ourselves in terms of the team. Working for you, good afternoon.
You working for me, Leslie?
Good afternoon. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, good afternoon to you and the team.
Yeah, bless
No, yes, now concerning the male cursing the female because she passed with her head high, I will average that as 65% male do that to 35% woman do that to man. And my question now, all your clock, one of you said, well, you know, the old time saying, the mother is to tell the child, your father dead standing up. Well, when they're dead standing up, how they bury them? Standing up? That's my question, because if he is supporting the child, and she can tell him he dead standing up, but I mean, she don't look for no more money from him. And he dead standing up, so therefore he's still standing up, dead. So that was my question. Thank you very much.
Okay. Good. So we were talking about the overall theme. Working for you, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon. Yes, good program, and I'm listening to the program since it started and so on, and listening to some of the comments and about the young ladies and the gentlemen and so on. But you have some positive and you have some negative, because sometimes you're just standing up and ladies will pass and say, good afternoon. And you would say, you would respond to them as well. They wasn't looking for nothing, they just say good afternoon. So, you know, you got to put it on both sides. Because some of them will just pass, they don't even know you and they say good afternoon.
Yes.
Okay? That's my point for now.
Okay, thank you. Right, so we're talking about making a difference for men and boys.
Definitely.
And we start with boys. You spoke about the mentorship program for boys, which is very, very important in terms of mentoring boys. Now, you, Mr. Agard, you have the National Men's Council, and that is for men, not for boys,
Safe spaces for
but that is safe spaces for men, where men can come and be in an environment, and it's a sort of a catharsis in which they can talk about their problems and issues that are affecting them. Because I think you would agree with me that when we give men and boys a better life, or more opportunities and more chances and so on, it is very positive for them in terms of their whole productivity and their contribution positively to the society in which we live. Now, yesterday, several men were awarded at the International Men's Awards Day. Remember, I began by saying this man called me, and when I told him, this is not the first time they've had this award seminar, he said, I never hear about it yet. He said, I didn't even know that there was a International Men's Day, but now he knows, and I know that he's listening. Right, so maybe you can give us a little background to the International Men's Day Awards, and what are some of the things that you look for in terms of awarding the contributions of men in our society.
Okay, Mr. Watson was on dealing with the men in general. Before I do, I'm not sure when it was started. So in 2007, they started the International Men's Day Award ceremony. I picked up in 2016. So just recently. But we have it annually, the International Men's Day Award, and the nomination is open. Every August we open nominations for persons to nominate men in the community that is making difference in the life of their family, and their contribution. Of course, there are not always nominations from the ministry. That's the Ministry of Community Development, Gender Affairs and Social Services. That's the green two-story building on Victoria Road. So every August we open nomination, and it's open. They have some certain categories there that you tick off when when you're nominating the person for the award, and then every end of September we close nomination. And that is because we have a panel of judges that come together to select the winners. They actually score them based on a criteria in terms of their leadership and their innovative ideas and their contribution to the community. That's most important. So when they score these people, we understand, we take the highest score, and we have our winners, and the judges are the ones that select the winners and who will be awarded a particular year. So it's really open for all men.
You see, the whole idea of the award ceremony, sometimes it could become controversial if you go to selection. Because people are going to say, oh, the Department of Gender Affairs select who they want. We don't get involved in no selection, because I believe in consultation and participation. And so we put out the application, the nomination application, we put the awards of the criteria and the areas that we want to be awarded to people. And we ask the communities to identify or to nominate persons, fill out those forms, send in the nominations and so on. They go through the judging process. We have absolutely nothing to do with it. All we do is when the process is completed, we look at the names that were selected by the judges, and we pass them on to the minister and the government for approval. Mm-hmm. That's our role in that thing. So I hear people say, oh, gender choosing who they are. We don't choose anybody. We leave it to the communities to pass, because sometimes you have people saying that, oh, I should get an award. If you work for education for 20 years, let education award you. Your 20 years has been with education.
Some want an award for fathering the most children.
But if you're out there and you're doing things in the community, and this is what we look at, is the community service. You take the time when you finish working or when you have some spare time, and you go in the community to do something. That is very important to this whole selection of award. Shows your contribution in the family, in the community, and in the society, and all is well. But you cannot come and say, because I put on a show, a one-time show, and I get 20,000 people, oh, I deserve an award. It does not work like that. You have to go out in the community and do some work.
Right, and it's good that you have these role models that you can uphold for others to follow. Now, Mr. Agard, it's your council is 3 years old, you said, and You do a lot of male mentoring, male to male mentoring, male bonding. You have topics on healthy sexuality and how to eliminate toxic masculinity. You probably talk about issues such as health issues. Men actually go through depression. I was actually looking at a BBC program the other day, and this, very good football player who was going through depression, and of course he did not have the guts to tell anybody he was going through depression, because of course here it is, he's a football star and all of that sort of a thing, and he just took his own life.
Yeah.
And then that is when people realize he left a note and all of that sort of a thing. So sometimes men are going through things, but because we have a society where said, oh, you have to be tough, you have to be macho, you have to be the ghetto man, you have to be this, you have to be that. Sometimes men suffer in silence and do not speak about their issues. But if they feel comfortable and the environment is created for them, and for example your counsel and so on, there are health issues that men face, prostate, which is particular to men, and abuse issues, because there are a number of men who are abused by women.
Of course, yes, they do.
They abuse, and women know how to
And they
abuse
suffer
men
silently.
very
They
well,
suffer
They
silently.
don't have to hit. They don't have to hit. They don't have to hit you to abuse you, or they know how to abuse you. I can tell you that.
Yes, psychological. Yeah.
They will tell you, look, you ain't getting nothing for 5 weeks, and they use that as a weapon. And then they me ain't cooking your food and me ain't washing your clothes and all this. I'm gonna give you this silent treatment. Don't put your hand on me.
And it is important that when men are trying to come out to help themselves, that we work with them. I think Mr. Eggert could speak about this. They're trying. They went to all the trouble to do a project to warn other men about their health, to put up signs and so on, and all of the health centers to warn. We have those signs still there for years. We can't get them because they keep saying that the centers are under repair. How long these things are going to be under repair? We need to get them, take them up and put them out so other men can see and get the message. And I hope the Ministry of Health is listening so they could put out,
You're saying that.
put out those things. I am saying it because it is true. We have that project now for quite a while, and we need to get those stuff out because they're talking about men's health. Well, the men want to help themselves. They want to send out the message to the other men, and if they go through all the trouble to create these projects and have them sitting there, what good is it doing?
And males in particular, I find, maybe because sometimes they didn't have any sort of a male affection in their life. Males find it very difficult to show affection to males. And I'm not talking here about somebody being gay. I'm not talking about that. I'm simply talking about a male showing affection for another male.
Like a father showing affection to his son.
But you get men who literally is afraid to hug another male just for a compliment. They can't hug a male to give a compliment. They got to peep all over the place for us to see who looking and so on. Try to stand off and shake their hand and so on.
That is not so. A lot of male.
I witnessed that.
A lot of male. If you'll be around, it depends on where you've been.
Yeah.
Because if the very same gangs that you mentioned earlier, depending on what these men go through, and the men see each other for a while, is a daps and a hug.
Sometimes,
Sometimes,
you
but
into the Rasta community, is the same thing, a daps and a hug. Man sit down and reason and different things and so on. So,
but sometimes there's some insecurities.
No, well, that sometimes is sometimes. But I'm talking about what I personally observe, and I'm sure some of these other brethren might be able to.
No, we do not have a hugging culture. No. That is true.
Right.
No, but
in some cultures, you see, some in the Middle East and in thing when two men meet one another, they kiss.
They do on the cheeky and the next cheeky and hug. And
that is their culture. No, we don't do that here.
We do what you call you do what you call like for instance, if I ain't see Dion for a long time and Dion come to my gathering, we grab, we dabs and we chest bump sometimes once, sometimes 3 times. That is called a holy kiss.
Yes.
Oh.
Right.
So, I mean, so we do that.
Right.
It's just that,
but
as
do
I say,
you
it
think
depends
that
on where
in
you're being.
general that part of the problem of men is that sometimes they don't express their emotions enough?
Well, because society, you see, what we got to understand, society is very harsh, very confusing, and very hard on men. You see, like society, when Dion growing up, and society look at Dion and saying, well, you don't have a girlfriend, you know, they start to try to put him in a category.
Right.
Yeah.
If he have 3 girlfriends, he's in another category,
Right.
and they put him up on their shoulders and call him
Right.
the king of the area.
Right. The Lion
When he
King.
become an adult with those same women, let's say he had like 4 girlfriends, you know, everybody want to be like Dion. You know, he had 4 girlfriends, society pushing him up in the air, he's the man and what's not. When Dion reached like 25 and those same 4 women still in his life, the same society that had him on their shoulder is now calling him a womanizer. So it's very confusing, and men have to go through this.
Yeah.
You know, I guarantee you, if you ask these youngsters about this, and not even ask, you'll actually just see this happening, because I went through that. I don't know which part Dion went through, but and the cameramen, them, I'm sure some of them might have gone through that as well. But society is very harsh, very confusing, and you find that this whole thing about socializing, it brings to what you were talking about as far as men expressing their emotions, because then you're here by yourself.
Society
Yeah.
makes it difficult.
Yeah, it's very confusing, very hard to deal with. So I think earlier somebody talk about men, some situation where persons are basically they're confused, and they
The
are
identity.
confused.
Identity.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
They are confused because sometimes you really don't know what direction to go.
Yeah.
And so what you end up doing, you just like the topic we have here, by lead by example. Sometimes that's what happens. Sometimes they see, well, okay, this is what these men doing, so I can just do that. You know, and sometimes it's not something that they initially want to do, but it's just what was set for them in the sense of an example, and they just follow it. So, but sometimes they actually find somebody to express that emotion to, you know, and that does be good, because at least sometimes that would kind of delay that whole idea about taking your own life and different things. And so personally, I would just speak out to all men while this opportunity even exists to say, well, you know, we did as a men council, and we appeal to all men to come with us, let's sit and chat and see what we could get done, see what we could get resolved. We don't always have the resource among us, but we would make the necessary referrals and what's not. We have
How
gender.
can people who want to get in contact or be a part of the council, how can they do so?
Well, as we put out the appeal and tell them where we are, once they come, we explain to them what we're about. They visit like maybe 3 times. We give them a copy of the Constitution.
Yeah, but is there a number that they can call? Is there a person they
Right.
can contact?
Contact information, you want me to put that out now?
You can put the contact in, because there might be some men who are interested in joining the council.
Right. So that number would be 665-9758. That would be my number personally, AGAD. And also the other number, I'll have to get that up there.
Right. Now, do you meet? How often do you meet?
We meet 2 times a month. That's the 1st and 3rd Wednesdays of every month.
Mhm.
The other contact number is 665-5948, and that is Philip Mills, our secretary. So with those 2 numbers, you call either one. You might not get me when you call mine, so you could call this other number. Let me just call them out again. 665-9758, that's Melvin Agard. 665-5948, that's Mr. Philip Mills.
And it's important to note
You
that
have to be
there's-
18 plus.
Right, we try to be consistent with the age range for voting and different things, even though that number is not consistent with the consent to have sex. I think we need to stay consistent. So we stay consistent with that.
18 plus.
Right, but that does not mean we do not interact with the younger boys in any way. We would help in any way we can also. But, you know, we really low on manpower. And if men could come around and, you know, help, and we, you know, help to help and be helped. That's the whole thing. We could just help each other.
Right. Good. Health issues. I think Miss Christopher mentioned earlier that she has seen more men taking care of their health, which is a good thing, and that she has also seen more men taking an active part in child rearing, taking them to the daycare and so on, and so therefore all is not lost.
No.
We're seeing improvement in men, and I really, we can make a difference.
Yes.
And we are making a difference. As I mentioned before, the Peace Initiative, despite what people are saying and all of that sort of a thing, I mean, that's a big difference that I have seen in moving away from a life of antisocial behavior, becoming productive members of our society and so on. That is what we want to really see in terms of our young boys and in terms of our men.
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned about the Peace Initiative. I'm not going to talk about that. I'll just dial back a little bit, because I'm seeing that if government take this lead to do that, then they could also even take the lead also in helping with the issue of health. Because one of the issues, and I would always recommend, I hope the health department people listening, that they could at least make a little bit more noise in terms of what we consume. We have a lot of food that come here that is filled with chemicals, and these non-communicable diseases are on the rise, and I think that our lawmakers, our parliament persons there, they could actually help to put whatever legislation, restrictions, whatever it is, to at least help, one, the local farmers to be more organic when they produce, and even look on the outside when you're going to import, to at least try to effect some kind of change into the supermarkets and how they're bringing this stuff and so on. Set things in place, because at the end of the day, other than gunshot for the past couple of years, the other thing would have been like cancer and diabetes and cardiac, heart disease and different things and so on. So you find a lot of these things, and we're saying men are now becoming more health conscious. It's like a cycle, because men was health conscious way back, and then when we get all these supermarkets and fast food thing coming, then people start to experiment with other things, and now we're trying to get back to be health conscious. But in that area, we would want government to at least assist in that area and be involved into dealing with what we consume.
Okay, we are out of time, so we have to be wrapping up.
Anyway, I'm happy that men have a safe space that they can go to, so they can take the issues. If they don't want to come to gender affairs, please go to the National Men's Council, and they will talk with you, and we'll see what we can do to help.
Definitely.
Yes. Dion?
I just want to say that there are a lot of positive men in our society, and I don't think we should write them off so soon. There are men who are making contribution. There was a project some years ago with 70 single fathers, but we never, like I said, we never hear about these fathers who are really going out of their way and making a contribution to their children and to the community. Like the International Men's Day is there to recognize that. I want to say that Gender Affairs is open to work with any entity, any organization that wants to work with us to improve and empower and transform the lives of our men and boys. And we're currently working with the National Men's Council on issues. Once they could bring an issue that they want us to panel on, we see how we can collaborate on that. In fact, the very year that they launched, we collaborated on them on a number of projects. I can remember a debate on the feminization of teaching. That really went well. There was a open air concert in the square. All men performed. We would have wished that more men could have come out and see the talent that is in the country. Men have, and contribute a little bit more. And I also want to take this opportunity, like Ms. Clifford said, to support. I want men to support the Men's Council, go to their meetings, and the next meeting is on the 3rd of December. So if you didn't get the numbers, just remember the next the National Men's Council meeting is 3rd December, and they meet at the Irishtown Primary School, 5 p.m. So I just want to say thank you, Mr. Lesroy, for inviting us on working for you. And we just want to say, happy belated International Men's Day to all men, and we just want to say that keep making a positive example in the life of our young men.
Mr. Agard?
Just one correction, not the 3rd, the 4th. The 3rd is a Tuesday.
Okay, the 4th, okay.
Well, we want to encourage men to at least achieve their fullest potential. Basically,
Right.
That's it.
Okay, now I want to thank all three of you for coming and to sharing on such a very rare topic, that of International Men's Day. Our men must be more celebrated, and men, who are champions of men's rights and who are taking their responsibility seriously and who are contributing positively to the society. And even those that are not, we find ways in which we can help them to be better integrated, productive members of our society. But thank you very much for coming on today's program. Next week we will be back for another edition of Working for You. Next week we are going to also have the Department of Gender Affairs back talking about the 16-day campaign against the abuse of women. So next week we'll be talking about women and the abuse against women and men and girls, and men will come into the picture too, because they're the ones that often do it. And
I'll be here as well.
thank you very much to all our callers and our listeners to today's program. My name is Lesroy Williams. Until then, goodbye.
Working for you. A weekly talk radio program which highlights developments of national interest and the activities of your St. Kitts Nevis government. Join host Lesroy Williams as he presents news, views, reports, and interviews about everything regarding the activities of the Team Unity government and the building of our communities and the development of St. Kitts Nevis. Tune in and call in to interact with your government and share your views regarding the upward forward development of your community and our beautiful Twin Island Federation. Working for You is weekly, every Wednesday live from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. on ZIZ Radio, Win FM, and Sugar City FM with rebroadcast on participating stations. Working for You.